Today's guest has a doctorate in neuropsychology and has changed the lives of over 3 million people in 40 countries. His belief system helps individuals and audiences overcome fear and inhibitions to really get results. He's co-authored 2 books alongside mentor and performance icon Tony Robbins, including bestseller Unlimited Power, a Black Choice. He's helped thousands of people through his TEDx talk on mastering human energy, and he's founded multiple companies on his journey to become a success magnet. Dare to make your life magnificent by welcoming world best-selling author and ultimate performance specialist Joseph McClendon III to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Is that a good enough intro?
Yeah, I want to meet this guy.
So, what do you got about shaking asses and attitude? Come on, tell me, what's all that about?
Well, interesting you should open with that. I literally did a show called The Doctors. And they asked me, it was kind of the same thing. They go, well, listen, would you come in and would you do the show? Would you talk to us a little bit about your psychology? And it was the same thing. They opened with that. And so I got to share that with people. Attitude, arguably, people, I believe, and I think most people will agree that the quality of our lives is the quality of our consistent attitudes, our psychology, if you will. And so as a neuropsychologist, what we found is this, that when we move our bodies, it changes the chemical makeup of the blood that goes through our bodies and makes us feel a certain way. And so I deduce that there's a certain area of the body, when you move that, it actually does it more, and it has a profound effect over the body, and that is the pelvic area or the ass area. So what attitude is that's where it came from, is this: the moving of one's ass and shaking of one's ass in that manner changes not only your attitude in the moment, but everything that I do is not just advice. Everything actually has science behind it and a method to produce a result, not just right now, but a lasting result. So you default to a better attitude, and that's why I call it attitude.
Right. Yeah. And do you think that's like nowadays, when with sitting down a lot, particularly if you live around this area, and when you get home you sit down a lot, do you think that's a problem with why maybe people are not quite as happy as what they should be because of that? We're sitting down a lot, we're not moving. What are your thoughts on that?
I think yes. I think that we all have what I call a default, and that is, and rightfully so, most of our lives, we sit in our cars, we sit at our desks, we sit in front of our computers, we're not as active as we used to be. And so that brings about a pattern, a physiological pattern, which brings about a chemical balance in ourselves or imbalance in ourselves. So that becomes our default. So when something happens, stressful or otherwise, something happens, we default to what we're used to. That's what we do as human beings. So I would agree with you, yes. And so part of what I help people do is to break that pattern, break the pattern of the way that they normally are, because everybody wants to change. Everybody wants to feel better or to look better or to have more energy and all those things. And it's not going to come about by doing the same old stuff. So we can change it in the moment, and we can change it in the moment and continue to do something so that it becomes your default. So happiness, joy, energy, and all those things become your default.
Right. So what's some of the things in terms of, like you make the joke about getting up and shaking your ass, for example, but what's some of the things that we can do in real life? Because I've been to seminars, I've listened to you, and it's great when you're there and you're on a high, but then you do come back and it's Monday morning and you've got your normal stuff to deal with. What are some of the things that little quick takeaways that people can do that are easy to start breaking some of those habits?
Yeah, I'll preface it by saying this, that nothing happens without consistent activity. And it doesn't mean that you got to do something for the whole rest of your life. If you want to build this muscle, it doesn't mean that you have to do the work that it's going to take to build it in the first place for the whole rest of your life. You do it for a while, and then you just do maintenance after that. So the saying is that life does not change just because we want it to change or because we get knowledge. Life changes from activity. The spoils in life go to those who do. And I correlate, you and I were talking earlier that about energy and how we go throughout our lives. And I have a precedence that I set for myself a long time ago, and that is I will not teach theory, meaning I'm not going to try and teach you something that I don't do myself or I don't practice myself. And so years ago, you may or may not know this, I was homeless. I lived in a cardboard box, and I was there not because I had a bad upbringing. I got great parents and great middle class upbringing. But I was there because at 17 and a half years old, 3 grown men tried to take my life because of the color of my skin. And they left me for dead. Longer story, but instead of blaming them, I blamed myself. And I felt it made me feel worthless. It made me feel if they could do that to me, then it meant that there was something wrong with me. Go figure, And so what changed my life was somebody gave me a book. Somebody I didn't know gave me a book, and the book was called Think and Grow Rich. It's a great book. If you haven't read it, you got to find the book. Everybody, you got to go find the book and read it. And it changed my life. But here's the thing, and the reason I'm saying this, is in the book, there were exercises. There were things to do. It said, do this and do this and this. And I didn't have any other choice because I was homeless. I was hopeless and at that place. So I did what the book said. I have lots of friends who, millions of people have read that book, and they go, it's a great book, and great advice. But I go, did you do the exercises? And they go, well, no, I did them religiously. And that's what produced the result. So
just on that, when you say religiously, what does that actually take in terms of effort? What was that like every morning you're looking, just go a little bit deeper in terms of what that means.
In that book, specifically, he said what they called affirmations in those days, And so in those days, the book was written in 1938. And so it said, you do it when you wake up, and then you do it in the evening. And that was it. And you do it with this type of enthusiasm, with this, he didn't call it physiology, but moving your body this way. So just do that. Those were the exercises. There was a couple of other things as well. So religiously, if it said did it in the morning, I would get up in the morning and I'd read those things exactly the way that he said it. And then I'd go throughout my day. And there was a couple things like planning things out and making lists of things. And then at the evening, I would do it. And of course, those are the simple ones. And then through time, I've adapted, which is the reason I'm saying this, I've adapted those same things to my own life and to what I share with other people as well. So you know this, if you go to a seminar with me, we're going to get a result right then. You're going to feel good at that moment, and we're going to get a change. I often say in one of my seminars, I say, bring me your worst nightmare. Bring me your biggest fear, your biggest phobia, your worst habit, your worst memory, because in that seminar, we're going to change it. At some point, you're going to go, I can't feel that anymore. And then we're going to replace it with something that is more resourceful and helps you. But it's not just what happens there. I'm going to give you something to do for 10 days religiously. And if you do it for 10 days, then that becomes your default.
Right.
And so to answer your question, long answer to your question, is some simple things that people can do. I have like rituals that I do in the morning. It's like people need more energy. You and I were talking earlier about people. The thing that people approach me with, the probably most asked question I get is, how do you get so much stuff done? I don't have time to do this. How do you? It's because I have more energy, and I have more energy because of the things that I practice. And one of the things that I tell people, a simple thing, when you wake up in the morning, before you go to sleep, put a glass of water by your bed. Just a big glass of water. And as soon as you wake up, whether you wake up to an alarm or not, drink that glass of water. Because 3 things happen. First off, when you put the water in, because you've been asleep for all this time, your body is dehydrated. As soon as you put the water in, water conducts electricity. We're electric beings. And so it starts the process. The second thing that it does is it fills your stomach. And, because most people wake up and you're really hungry, and that's when they do I shouldn't say stupid things, but they eat the wrong kinds of foods, if you will. But it fills your stomach, and it makes you, and the third thing it makes your brain function better, so you're thinking better. So get up, drink a glass of water. Second thing that you do in the morning, and I know these sound simple, but you asked me, what are the simple things, is I sit up in my bed, and I try and touch my toes. Just as simple as that. I can't. Through all these years, I can't do it right away. It takes me 2 or 3 minutes before I can finally touch my toes. And while I'm doing that, in my brain, I'm thinking, what am I grateful for? Most people wake up and they go, what do I got to do today? I don't. I just think of what I'm grateful for. I smile, I breathe. Those 3 things, drink the water, touch your toes, think about what you're grateful for. And then when you get up, wait for it, smile and shake that ass. I know it's simple, but again, it's all about rewiring our brain. Our brain is not just this mass of electrical connections and things. It's little nerve connectings. It's nerves connecting together. And then when we remember something. Dismember is taking it apart, remembering is putting it back together. So when we remember something, what you're grateful for, the things that you've accomplished, then you actually start to build new neuroassociations and your brain grows and we rewire ourselves and that becomes your default.
Right, okay. So I've read the story about the motorbike breaking down in the gas station and when I read it, I couldn't imagine being in that situation. It was extremely traumatic. And on top of that, you know, the overarching message, which the reason they did it was because of your colour. How did you go from that terrible situation and what were the steps you took to rebuild your life and get on the path to where you are today? Because I guess most people, you know, and certainly for me, if that had happened, then for a start, revenge would be something that would be in me. It's like, okay, well, any people that are like that, then I'm going to have a hard time, you know, not going after them. But you know, you totally turned that around. So tell us a little bit about that moment, if you would, and how you ended up where you are.
Well, the honest truth is, I didn't change it completely for several years. I had nightmares for many, many years. And I still had, I never had that revenge that you were talking about because those guys were gone. And I was raised in such a way that you don't blame others for the action of a few individuals, fortunately. But I had a lot of, because it was traumatic. They almost killed me. And so to answer your question, what I did was I started seeking to better myself. As I said, when that happened, it made me feel there was something wrong with me. So I started looking for, and those thoughts were in my head all the time. And so that's why I sought out psychology. That was my major in college at first. I fooled myself into thinking I'm doing it because I want to help other people, which, by the way, I didn't tell you this. When that guy gave me the book, which were the steps that, because I had this to focus on instead of what had happened to me.
Was that fairly close after that situation? Then?
Yeah, it was within 4 months.
Right.
After that. Yeah. Yeah, it was soon after that.
Because I remember you saying even like the day after that event and you was in the police station, even the police were sort of looking at you a little bit in disgust, as though like, what the hell were you doing there anyway?
It wasn't the day after. It was when I woke up because they assaulted me in the gas station and they literally left me for dead. And when I woke up in the morning, now this was years ago, so in those days, gas stations had attendants in them. And so when the guy came in the next morning to open up the gas station, there I was, wedged in between the gas pumps. And so he called the police. And when they came, they handcuffed me. I woke up in the back of the police car with handcuffs on me. And they, you know, go figure, they thought, you know, I had done something, we're trying to break in or something like that, and they were agitated at me. And, you know, and my face was bloody, and I have, you can't see it, but I have a rib that's still, because they broke my rib, and when you can't cast a rib, and so I have a rib that sticks out here, and that's for the rest of my life. And I was bleeding internally and everything, and I had to tell them, you know, I'm in bad shape, I need to go to the hospital. And it was only then that they called the ambulance. And so, again, that left me feeling like there's something wrong with me. And so to answer your earlier question, I got the book, I was reading the book, and then my life changed because of the hopefulness that I got, that I could make a change, that my situation could change, and it was up to me to make those changes. So I didn't know it at the time, but even something as simple as reading those affirmations, that I am, for me, it wasn't, I want to have a house, although those were one of the things. It was that I am, everything's going to be okay, and I'm a good person, and I am this, and I am that. And I didn't know it at the time, but what I was doing was I was programming myself to believe, get a little emotional about it, to believe that I was worthy and that I was worthwhile. And whether you're doing business, or whether you're doing any of those 6 areas of our lives that are important, what you believe about yourself is the foundation of how successful or how much further you're going to go in that area. I didn't know it at the time, but I was doing those things, and then when I went back to the guy, probably 6 months later, it's a long time ago, so it's hard to remember, but I went back to him to thank him. And I'd seen him a couple times in between there, but I really went back to him. I said, listen, you've changed my life. What do I do for you? How can I help you? Because that was the way I was raised. And what he said to me was, he goes, here's what you owe me. He says, you do the same thing for as many people as you possibly can for the rest of your life, in whatever way you can. And that's why I do what I do now. I know it sounds noble, but it's the truth. It's like, my business success and all the things that I have now are all a result of, those beginnings, but I can always correlate it back to, if you help, first off, help yourself. I say position, heal thyself. And I won't teach theory. I'm not going to teach somebody something that I haven't done myself. But I just believe if your outcome in life is to go out and to offer as much value to as many people as you can, then it's going to come back to you in whatever endeavor you do.
Right.
Whatever you do.
Right. So we obviously met, and you did literally change the direction of my life.
You mean this stuff works?
and I told the story earlier about the final day on UPW and the chicken video and the nutrition, and I literally went home that evening and I changed all the food I ate. It was very powerful. I don't know what happened to me over that whole event, but
I got you.
Something made a difference. How did you go then from reading a book to standing on stage in front of thousands and thousands of people, telling them how to lead their lives when you'd been from a place where you were kind of working it out yourself?
Well, like I said, it didn't happen overnight, and I didn't get over that deep-seated fear and inhibition for several years after that. Because I was one of those people, I grew up with a military dad that said, you got to work, you got to stay in school, you got to keep a good job, and, all that stuff. And that's what I did. I was always ambitious and worked very hard at all that stuff. But I became burned out as well because I wanted to be a musician. This around me, this is my man cave, where thank you for shooting us in here. But that was my goal in life, was to become a recording artist. I knew I was talented enough. I was a songwriter. I knew when I was playing in bands and all those things. And I'd worked really hard. I had seen an infomercial. The year was 1985. And in 85, there was an infomercial. And the infomercial was a guy named Robert Allen. And he was one of the first guys that was teaching people to buy real estate and flip houses. His book was called Nothing Down. Went to a seminar and learned the skill of being able to do that. And in a year and a half's time, I purchased 26 houses. And my outcome was, because see, I couldn't quit my job. I put myself through college as a dental technician.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Me too.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Seriously. Yeah, so you know.
Well, I didn't complete, actually. I bummed out because wasn't very good at school, but that's funny.
Well, I liked school to a certain extent because I felt I was doing it because I was going to help other people, but in the end I knew it was because I was helping myself. I had to get over my own problems. But I hated my job. I wanted to be a musician, so I was playing in 2 different bands. I was working 8 hours a day on a job. I was still in school, and trying to have a relationship with my girlfriend at the time. I was up to here. I was burned out. And my friend at the time came to me and he goes, dude, you look like crap. And I go, dude, I don't know what to do. Because I had money from the houses was coming in, but I couldn't quit my job. And I know this now. I was programmed by a loving father that said, you got to stay in school and keep a good job. Because he didn't, my father wasn't an artist and he didn't really understand, being an artist and things like that. And he felt like, well, that's not going to make you money. You can't raise a family on that. Stay in school. So I did. I realized every time it came time to quit my job, I'd freak out. And so that evening came that I was freaked out. I had the money. I couldn't quit my job. I had offers to go be a musician, but I couldn't quit my job. And I didn't know what was going on. And my friend goes, look, here's this seminar by Tony Robbins. And this was 86 now, late 86. And he said, and I didn't know who Tony was. I had no idea. Went to the seminar. I saw this guy who had somebody that had a phobia. I think it was a fear of heights. And I watched him take that woman from the fear of heights to being able to go in an elevator and stand on top of a building in like a half hour. And I go, I've been in school for, 6 years, and they never taught us that. And long story short, he and I actually became friends at that seminar. So to answer your question, it was in that moment that I said, that's what I want to do. So now I'm working still 8 hours a day on my job. I'm learning neuroscience, the neurosciences, still playing in bands, all that stuff and everything. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. Fix yourself, dude. So I used that information. I used those technologies to shift. I quit my job that week, and I became a musician. I got a recording deal in 1990, and as I shared with you before, that deal went away in 91. And it was at that moment I had to make the decision. My mom got sick as well. I had to make a decision to do something different, and that's when I made the decision to do what I'm doing now. I wrote my first book. And started on this path of doing what I'm doing now. At first, it was, I opened a practice in Los Angeles, just curing people of phobias and emotional challenges and things like that. And then I started doing small groups, larger groups, and then here I am now.
Yeah. I know, I guess being in a position where you think, it's hopeless, you see people with all this success and you're not there, and trying to get or working to get where you want just seems like an impossible. And then you read the books, and there's a lot out there about the mind and the power of attraction and all these kind of things, and crazy stuff. But and you mentioned your mum earlier as well. Tell me the story about your mum, because I think that's a powerful example of something that you read in books that people think it's all a bit woo-woo and that can't happen. But that's a great real life example of how the mind has got the ability to do some amazing things.
Amazing things, yes.
Just would you mind just sharing that?
It's all interlinked. It's I hear this all the time, that it's the mind, body, spirit, And I'm a bit of a scientist, meaning that show me, that's great, but I can't touch that. So show me something that I can use step by step to produce a result. Otherwise, like quotes, people say, you got to have courage, you got to have bravery, you got to do this. And there's quotes all over the place. But a quote, in my opinion, without a system and a method to do what that quote says, is just good advice. And so my mom, this was in it was 88 when she got sick, was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And very long story short, I had met Dr. Deepak Chopra a few months before. And Deepak had said that oftentimes, I forget what the ratio was, it's like 8 or 9 times out of 10, 7 or 8 times out of 10, when a physician gives a terminal diagnosis to the patient, and they tell them you got 6 months to live or 2 months to live, that person dies on the day or real close to the day, because they've suggested it to them, and the body starts to make that real. It's internal manifestation, if you will. And so I heard him say that, and then when the physician told me that my mom had 2 months to live, I argued with him not to tell her. Don't tell her that. And he goes, no, I got to tell her. It's the truth. And I go, no, you can tell her she's sick. You can tell her she has cancer, but don't tell her she's going to die. And I told him about Deepak Chopra, and he and I almost went to blows behind it. Long story short, I never let him tell her that. And through changing her diet, changing her mindset, and changing the activities that she did, she lived another 11 and a half years cancer-free. And so that was an example for me, obviously to her as well, to recognize that what I'm doing and what I want to teach people has merit and is useful far beyond just getting ourselves healthy. I have what I call the 60-20-20 rule. And it goes like this. It's founded in something I created called Further, Faster. We all want what we want sooner rather than later. And there's 6 areas of our lives: mentally, emotionally, financially, physically, our relationships, and mentally, emotionally, financially, physically, relationships, and spirituality. Okay, and we all want more of that stuff. That's what makes us happy. We want it sooner rather than later. So my technology and what I bring to people is help them get that quicker, but through methodology. And just like I said, helping somebody change how they feel about something, there's a system to doing it. And so the 60-20-20 rule is just a simplification of how we function as human beings. Whatever you want to do in all those 6 areas of our lives, it comes down to 60% is your psychology. If you think you can do it, you can do it. If you think you can't, then you can't do it. But it's more than just, a motivational saying. It literally, our bodies physically operate that with certain thoughts produce feelings in us that cause us to do certain things. And so we can, as I said before, we can condition our brains to have those thoughts so that we'll have those feelings so that we'll do more. So 60% of it is psychology. 20% of it is energy.
Right. So just on that first one, and I was reading some of the stuff where you talk about, even television can be influencing what goes in here, and the people around you can influence what's going in here. So even without, you could probably be reading a good book, but maybe even without knowing it, you could be getting stuff that's going in here that's kicking out different actions. So what could you do to, I guess, kind of keep nice and clean and healthy, this thing up here?
Right. First off, as much as possible, cut off what you consciously know is negative input. I'm not saying don't watch the news, but don't obsess over it and don't watch it over and over again, because you can watch one cycle, which is 15 minutes, and if you're a thinking person and you watch that thing is going to repeat in another 15 other, and you can just get consumed with it. So if you have to watch that, narrow it down. What you said is absolutely true. I've always said this: that television is the number one, by far, greatest influencer in since the dawn of man. It's influenced people to do things. So shut that thing off. Now, I'm not saying completely cut it out, but regulate how much you can do and what you're going to watch, that kind of thing. And then, even that, whatever you do, this is such a simple exercise that at the end of the day, assess what you've learned. Just go back and go, okay, here's what I learned today about this, here's what I learned this, and that remembering starts to rewire your brain. The more you do it, the more you start to believe that, and the more you start to believe it, then the more you start to feel it, the more you start to feel it, the more you start to do it. So the psychology shift can be done gradually, like something like that, or it can be done quickly. And the quickly, there's techniques that we have, interrupting your pattern, and things like that, and replacing it with something. But what my personal belief is that if you actively go after what you're putting in up here, and not just, like you said, television, but what you're saying about yourself. We have 3 beliefs: the beliefs about ourselves, the beliefs about other people, and the beliefs about the world around us. Those are our 3 core beliefs, and that's what makes up our psychology. That's what we're thinking all the time, unconsciously. What do I believe about myself? And whatever you've allowed to come in, maybe somebody said something that you're, too tall or too short or too black or too white when you were younger, and you believed that. Well, that tape is running over and over again in the back of your head, and that causes the chemical makeup of the blood that runs through you. That, amongst other things. But you can change that. But just by changing, I am this. I'm amazing. You've been to the seminars with me, and I literally have people stand up and go, I freaking rock. I'm amazing. And those words, every word that we speak, changes our biochemical makeup. The more you do it with the great physiology and all that stuff, it starts to make you believe it. And then from that takes care of that first leg.
And so just one other thing you mentioned about your father and him having a very strong influence on you. What do you do when you do have probably friends and family that are not quite where you think you want to do, and that's just the people around you? How do you...
Well, again, that's input.
Right.
And so this is hard to tell people this, but get away from those people. In other words, it doesn't mean divorce your friends or anything like that. It just means find something else to do. If you know somebody is in your life giving you negative input, or they don't believe in you, that kind of thing, limit your time with them. And then when you're with them, constantly shift how you're taking that stuff in. Like, if somebody is saying something negative to you, and you know it's negative, and you're sitting there going, maybe you're right. Stop, take a deep breath, and in your brain, and again, assess at the end of the day. Here's what I learned. When this person was saying this to me, it made me feel bad. I'm not going to feel bad. I'm awesome. Those kinds of things. Whatever we say to ourselves, whatever thoughts that we have, we're making that stuff up all the time. we're making up our perception and what we believe about what's going on. And so as long as you're making it up, you might as well make up the good stuff. You might as well make up and say stuff because it's going to go in either way. And you are the biggest influencer of you. So you can watch something, and even though it's terrible, you can go, well, at least I'm not that. Or you can go, you know, here's what I can do about it. Or you can go, that's terrible, that's awesome, and feel bad about it. At the end of the day, if you assess what you've learned, then you're remembering and you're rewiring your brain to be more optimistic, to be more focused, to be more directed towards what you want. Right. And then again, that starts to change. That's that 60%. And then because of that 60%, we feel better and we have the energy to do stuff. Now, energy is an interesting thing because energy comes in two different forms. One is that electric energy it's literally electricity that we have that's produced through our diet, through our thoughts, and through our movement. Okay.
Right. And sorry to jump in again,
please.
But so
I get yakking.
On the TED talk, you talked about some special photography that can view energy. So what's that then? Is that the same type of energy?
No, that's the third type.
Oh,
that's
okay.
the third thing
I'll
talk about in a second. That's the second type of energy, yes, but that's the third thing I'm going to talk about.
Okay.
But yes, that so segueing away from that, the energy that you produce through your diet, through your physical movement, and through your thoughts, that's one thing that gives you, because we can all get inspired, you know. You can think, okay, well, gosh, you know, I'm going to go see, the person I'm in love with. And that thought and that remembering produces some electric energy inside of you, okay? Or you can eat something that produces energy, or you can just move your body and you're going to produce energy in that moment. And as we were talking earlier, the number one question I get is how do I get so much stuff done? And it's because I sleep less than most people. I have more energy than most people. I sleep 3 hours less than the average person, which gives me a total of about 3 months extra time in the year. You can do the math. So that's one thing. The second piece is, as I said, which you mentioned before, we put off electricity. Now this I'm going to segue into the third 20. So 20% is the energy that you produce through your diet, through your exercise, and through your thoughts. But the other 20% is attractiveness. And it's not just looking good, and it's not just the laws of attraction. That's part of it, because the laws of attraction focus on, which is true, our ability to attract into our lives the situations, circumstances, and material things that we desire.
And is that true? And I'll come back to this because I've got a few things. I want you to tell the Harley story because that was one that that got me to believe in it. But okay, I'll come back to that story in a minute. Go on, carry on.
No. Yeah, I'll come to that. But I'll prove it to you. I'll prove it to you, whoever's watching, whichever one of you is watching. And that is this. That is real. But remember, that's only half of it. And the other half is just as important that I'll talk about here in a second. That proof that you attract stuff to your life is the question is, I'll ask you, have you ever been sitting in your car and you feel somebody looking at you? Yeah. And you look over and they're looking at you?
Yeah, as a kid, we used to stand in the shopping centre, and I remember this when I was I must have been 10 years, and three of us, we say, right, let's pick a person, stare at them. And the person used to look back, and it was weird.
Right.
But we thought it was just a game.
No, it's not, and this is the proof that we are attracting stuff to you. Because here's the way that the human body works. Is first off, you mentioned it before, Carillion photography. Go on YouTube, look it up. And it is a camera, and now it's video. It used to be just still photography. And that is that every living thing puts off electromagnetic energy. It's electricity that can be measured meter-wise, but it can also be photographed. And they'll show it to you. It looks like lightning bolts or a haze coming around you. In California, we call it your aura, man. But it's a very real thing. And so the principles of it are that when we put our attention and intention on someone else or something else, three things happen. Number one, our electromagnetic energy grows. If you watch it, you'll see it. It grows. The second thing that happens is they feel it. And then the third thing that happens is their energy grows. I said there's three things. There's four things. Their energy grows. And then the fourth thing is that you are attracted towards each other. So that is why what you were doing, that's a perfect example, is those people are attracted to you and they're going, what is this? It's the smallest form of attraction, but it's a very real thing. And so we can literally do that and by the way, that principle works with material things, situations, circumstances, everything. So there's proof, and what you were asking about the Harley, is one of my workshops that I do in your wife's home country here, Netherlands, or doing one coming up here shortly, something I call the A factor, the attraction factor. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about the second part of it. But I show people an example of my materializing something. We used to watch this show called American Chopper. I've been riding Harleys for years. And on it, they said they wanted to give away a Harley. And they said, enter this contest. And I said to my fiance at the time, I said, I'm going to win that. And I went and did the formula that I teach people at my workshop. It's a formula. It's a system. And I did it very long, and I showed on, and I bring that video to the workshop, and I show people, here's what I did. I drew a picture of the motorcycle that I wanted, and it's very unique. It's in the garage if you wanted to show your peeps. And I drew the picture, I did the process, and out of 50,000 people, I won the motorcycle. Now, I tell people, I'm not going to say, you know, you're going to get everything that you want when you want it, but this stacks the deck in the favor. So I use that as an example. But here's the other side of it, which is critically important. Yes, we can attract things into our lives, you know. And for me, like I said, theory is great. Show me, you know. So that example that you just gave of you, you know, causing people to feel you. That's an example of you sending energy and that energy coming back to you in the form of attention in that way. So many other stories. But the other thing is this, and this is what most people don't put a lot of thought into because it's not talked about, but I talk about it, and methodology. And that is this. You being attracted to what you want is as important as it being attracted to you. Because other people want, you know, if you're wanting to start a business, if you're wanting to change your life in all those 6 areas of your life, you want something, yes? But guess what? The reason you don't, half of the reason you don't have it is because there's something inside of you going, I don't deserve it. Or I'm not smart enough. Or I was born at the wrong time. Or I'm this and stuff. So we have inner conflict.
Right.
And that's pushing it away.
So just to jump in there, we talked earlier about, so your dream is this, you had a dream to be a musician, and you told about the conversation with Tony where you said, look, this is meant to happen, and you say, well, it's probably your destiny. How does that stack up then with your story about attract? Because I guess at that time you probably felt you was attracted to be a musician.
Yeah.
What was your sort of explanation to going in a different path?
Because two things. I accomplished that goal.
Right.
I was I literally wrote, because from Think and Grow Rich, that was one of the exercises. What do you want? Specifically, what do you want? And I did all those things, and I became what I wanted. I had a recording contract with a major company, making records, playing music all over the place, and I crossed that line. And as I told you, at the time I was 38 years old, which is an old musician to be breaking into that field. And I accomplished what I wanted. And all the way back to when the guy told me to do what he's done for me for as many people as you possibly can, I had almost forgotten about that. So when that time came, my mom was sick, the recording on contract went away, I suddenly realized, well, wait a minute, I already crossed that finish line. I got what I wanted. Right. And even now, this is my man cave, you know. I still get to play music. I still get to do that. But what my higher calling was doing what I committed to that man, which is what I do now. Right. So you get what you want in one way or another. The amount of people who fail is directly proportionate to the amount of people who give up. However, when you get what you want, celebrate.
Right.
You know, when you get what you want, recognize it.
So I guess sometimes then it's being, and you use the word, you know, being quite specific about what it is you want and realizing when you've crossed the finishing line that, you know, it's like, well, where do you go next, I suppose. And I think that's for me, that's interesting because sometimes, you know, myself and others included, it's like, well, if you're not totally clear about what that end destination is, you're in this state of, well, I've not quite got what I want, but you're not quite clear about what that is.
Yeah,
do you agree?
I agree 1,000%. Believe it or not, most people, and by the way, if you don't recognize that you have accomplished even some of it, then you start to build that inner conflict that I'm not enough, it's not enough, and all those things. And that type of conversation causes us to feel bad, causes us not to do as well. Right. In other words, like people who, and I use these two things all the time just because they're kind of low-hanging fruit and easily understood, losing weight and making money. There are two, I mean, there's lots of other things, but those are two things that most people can identify with. And so let's talk about making money, okay? A person will say, well, I don't make enough money, and I want to make $1 million. And so one of the things that I ask is, how much do you make right now? And across the board, the look that comes over their face is, well, I only make, $50,000 a year now. That's $50,000 a year. Celebrate that. But most people feel bad about that they've come this far. And if you do that, that's like scolding the baby because it didn't get its first word right or because it didn't walk the very first time. You don't do that. You encourage the baby. You go, that was great. Now here's what's next. And that changes our psychology, which changes our energy, which changes us to be attracted to what we want, which was the thing I was talking about, us being attracted to what we want. And we feel and we think and we desire going after. It's what makes us get up early, stay up late, do the extra stuff, is the pull towards what we want, not the push from behind. Because the push from behind oftentimes is negative or is it doesn't feel good. I got to get up in the morning. I got to do this, and I got all this stuff to do. And that attitude instead of attitude is what holds so many people back. So that third piece, that 20%, is attractiveness. You being attracted to what you want, handling the inner conflict that you may have, handling and also being specific about and learning the art or the skill of attracting that into your life. Because if you're attracting something towards you and you're moving towards it, that's further faster.
Right. Yeah. So before you kind of get to the stage of deciding where you want, and I've been in positions where you're not quite sure where you want to go, but you don't want to be where you are.
Yeah.
Is the step kind of get those things in place? So get the 60% right, what's going into your mind, get the diet right, get the energy right, and then think, as opposed to try to work it out when you're probably still in that state where wrong things are coming in your head. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, you're brilliant, and you're absolutely right. Number one, there's a formula, is everything I say. And the first, everything is always know what you want. That's always know what you want and then why you want it. You just do those two things right then it starts to rewire you on the inside. But what I mean by that is this. You said, I want something else. I don't know what that is, but I know I just don't want what I have right now. Well, that's a trap.
Right.
Because I always say, pick a horse. Pick something, because something is better than nothing, and something is better than feeling bad about what you have. First off, feel good about what you have, celebrate that, and go, at least I have this, because you have more than I had when I was homeless, And people go, well, yeah, well, and I say, lose that attitude right there. Really, literally celebrate it. Force yourself to celebrate it. But then pick a horse. You go to the horse races. I don't go to horse races, but this is a metaphor. I would say 99 and 9/10, if not 100% of the time, when those horses leave the gate, all of them cross the finish line. Unless that horse falls and breaks its leg, all of them cross the finish line. So pick one of them. Just choose one. If you have a desire to do something, you'll learn, you'll find out very quickly if that's the right thing you should be doing or not. But pick one of them and go, that's what I'm going to do. The indecision is the thief of our dreams. That's what causes procrastination and hesitation and all those things. Choose something, and you'll know very, very quickly if that's the right thing or not.
Right. Okay. And I guess, like you say, if you can do those things in the morning, like appreciate where you are and get yourself in the right state, that's also going to sort of help out on that journey.
Yeah. It's the way you start your day. Make that a ritual. Drink a glass of water, touch your toes, be grateful.
Right.
So I try to make everything as simple as possible. And even like attitude, which was what we started with. If I make it fun and simple, then more people are going to do it. If not, you said to me, and I thank you so much for the compliment, that when you came to that seminar and I told you this, that changed your life. But was it rocket science what I taught you?
No, it wasn't. No, because I'm in the fitness business, right, and I'd been in it, and so no, it wasn't rocket science. But I guess what happened created something in me to want to.
Yeah, I just said it. You had a pull to do what you wanted. Through that whole seminar, we set you up. What do you want? Why do you want it? What are you going to do? Those three things. And so by the time it got to that place right then, whatever your outcomes were, and thank you for sharing with me before, what has happened in your life, whatever they were, that piece made it go, in order for me to get that, I got to have more energy. I got to do this. And it was just, I gave you a few things to do, just 10 things to do for 10 days. That wasn't, no, it was 8 things to do for 10 days.
Yeah, it was a 10-day. I remember there was a period, and it was like, right, do this for every day, which at the time was quite difficult because I think, I can't even remember what they were now, but there was water, there was 80% water content, diet, there was a few other things, and just doing that for that period of time was quite a challenge.
But I didn't say it was going to be easy. I said it was simple.
Yeah.
It wasn't rocket science. And however, we set you up to not just desire those things, but be pulled towards those things. It makes it easier to do those things. In other words, it wasn't rocket science, and there were a few things to do, but for some reason, and the reason is because you got instilled in you the why, the pull towards it. Your psychology changed. All the things that we do and all the things that I teach people, I didn't say this. By profession, I'm a neuropsychologist. I help people get over fears, phobias, emotional challenges, and things like that. By profession, that's by profession. By trade, I'm what's called an ultimate performance specialist. And all that means is through seminars, workshops, live interventions, one-on-one coaching, I help people get the best out of themselves so they go further faster. And I've had the privilege of working with Grammy winners, Academy Award winners, and movie stars, actresses, you name it, sports figures, the best of the best. And when it comes down to it, they're just like the rest of us, exactly like the rest of us. We all have the same brain, the same nervous system, same type of body.
But the difference, what's the difference?
The difference, there is no difference.
What's the difference, I guess, between the ones that have excelled to the best of their trade or business or industry, and the ones that want to be there? What would you say if you had to boil it down?
If I had to boil it down to something happened in that person's life that they got focused on that one thing, either by choice or by happenstance, that they got focused on that one thing, and something inside changed their psychology that said, I can do this. I'm going to do this. And they got attracted towards it, and they did it. And that's the difference. Whereas the other person is going, I want this, that'd be nice, but I'm not smart enough, I'm not this, I don't have the money, and they got that conflict going on. The conflict is different, the conversation, the thought process, because remember, it's always what we think determines how we feel, which will determine what we do. If this person that's mega successful in this area is going, I can do this, I'm the best for the job, even though they may have some, because some of them are very insecure, at some point in there, they're going, yeah, I got this, I can do this. This person doesn't have that. And so for the intervention part of it is to go into this person that doesn't have it, even though they want it, and find out what the conflicts are and shift their psychology, shift how they think, and that'll change how they feel, which will change what they do.
Right.
And so my personal belief is whatever you want, you can get, you can have it, you can make it happen. But back on what you said. You said these people who have achieved in a major way and they've, are achieved this, and this person hasn't. I can correlate it. Something that I call, is the name of my new book, called Awesome Sauce. And that is this. Awesome Sauce is the name that I've given to the chemicals, the solutions, and the compounds that our brain and our body produces when we're functioning at our optimum. When you're in the zone, and you've all been in the zone, everybody's been in the zone, the blood that courses through our veins when we're operating at our best is different than the blood that courses through our veins when we're not. And so the stuff that's in there, the endorphins, the dopamines, the adrenalines, the testosterone, and all that stuff that's flowing in our veins there, that's awesome sauce. And so we can all produce it, but here's my point. The person that doesn't have what they want, that doubts themselves and wants something more, has not so awesome sauce flowing through them. But what they're forgetting is that they got just as much awesome sauce as this person that's an Academy Award winner in other areas. And that comes up in like this. And people, it's when I tell people this, oftentimes they go, yeah, but it's true. Can you tie your shoes? Because you have awesome sauce when you tie your shoes. You don't have to think about it. The blood that flows through you is absolute certainty that you can tie your shoes. Can you drive a car? Can you all these things. And so what I teach people and I show people how to do is to borrow from what you're already awesome at, and let's put it into the area that you're not. There's a system, there's a process for doing that. And when we do that, and that's the same with the people that are awesome that want more. I can't divulge names, but at least one of them came to me before, and his outcome was he wanted to win an Academy Award. He'd never won an Oscar. He'd done at this time 50 films, a major artist, and had done it, but he was feeling like he was a failure because he didn't have an Oscar. And so, dude, it's like most of us would look at that and go, are you serious? You know, so having him transfer, you know, first off, get over it, you know, and recognize that you can take everything that it took to get those 50 films and put it into this next film, what you want. And he won the Oscar. And I'm not saying that I got him to win the Oscar. I'm just saying that I was part of the same with Grammy winners and things like that as well.
Yeah.
So it's all transferable. It's all, we already do it. We all already are awesome. And the moment you realize that, wait a minute, I freaking rock. I can do this. Then you have what you asked me earlier, what this person has about the thing that we determine is awesome, you know, that is the pinnacle of that particular area. We can do it too.
Yeah. And the bit, I like the bit you said, even if you're not sure, because you hear people say, well, I don't know what my calling is. But even if you don't, it's like you say, well, we're going to cross the finish line, pick a horse, and then see where it takes you.
Yeah. And you'll learn really quickly, is this the horse I want? Or wait, let me get off of this one, let me get on that one. Yeah. You know, and you'll learn, because indecision is what is the thief of our dreams.
Yeah, I like that one. So very practical then, outside of what we've talked about, for people who are listening to this and who have not yet gone to the event, and I'd recommend that, and we'll talk about in a minute how they can find your events. But for something that they can do, they're probably sitting in their car listening to this. What's something they can do immediately after this, listening to this podcast, that can get them in that right direction, would you say?
First off, I already gave that part of that answer and that is at the end. First off, the number one thing that you can do is appreciate yourself. And I know that sounds unicorns and crystals and things like that, but the reality is that whatever you want, you are the only one that's going to be there every morning and every night. Yeah. Wherever you go, there you are, you know. So take care of you, because wouldn't it be great if you had a voice that spoke to you, encouraging you all the time? Wouldn't it be great if you had a voice that spoke to you that was loving all the time and appreciating you and all that stuff? Because that's what we're seeking from others anyway. You want to make more money. Why? It's not just so you can have a nice car, a nice house and stuff like that. It's so that at the end of the day, you can go, I did this. You know, I'm awesome. This is great. That's what we all want. We want appreciation. Remember I said there's 3 beliefs. Ourselves, other people, and our belief about the world around us. Okay, but we all want appreciation. It's what we live for. You know, you met my new little dog, Toby. Okay, that dog, all he wants to do is, good boy, here's a cookie. That's what, you know, that's what he lives for. Well, we're the same way. But guess what? He doesn't sit there going, I'm a failure because I didn't, you know, I pooped in the house. He doesn't do that. He's going, you know, you know, it's silly metaphor, but a dog has the greatest confidence all the time. Humans don't. We doubt ourselves. Look, this is a pet peeve of mine, but you asked, you got me started on it, is this. Why would you give control of this to a television screen that is designed to keep you negative and watching television? The answer is, why? Is because you've given up control. This is a horrible example. And I use this in one of my seminars, and I wrote about it in my first book. And it's not a racial thing. I want to preface it that, but it's just the truth. And don't take my word for it. Anything that I say, go check it out. Go on YouTube. There was an experiment done. First it was done in the 40s, then it was done again in the 50s, then in the 70s, and it was just recently done. And that's where they took young black children, African-American children, between the ages of 3 and I think 7 years old. And they did this experiment over and over again. And they put a black baby doll and a white baby doll. And they asked these kids, which baby doll is wrong? And all of the black kids pointed to the black baby. It's the saddest thing you'll watch. It's live. And then they said, which one is ugly? And they all pointed to the black baby. They said, which one is bad? And they pointed to the black baby. Which one is good, pretty, and right? They all pointed to the white baby. So what this is saying is that at 3 years old, something has influenced them to believe less about themselves and that they are wrong, bad, and ugly. And that another color, for whatever reason, again, this is not a racial thing, but this is just an example of how input has influenced us to believe about ourselves, about other people, and about the world around us. And so that's going on at that age. television, I said, is one of the biggest things, but it's also other things as well. So here we are, whatever age we are right now, we know this, so let's circumvent it. Let's chop that off by determining what we're going to allow to go in and what we're going to say to ourselves, because that's what will change. What will change us is what we say to ourselves over and over again with enthusiasm will cause us to believe. You want more money? Tell yourself you're worth it. Tell yourself over and over again that you can do it. And these are the simple things, which is what you asked for. In seminar and in things that I do, we have methodology that if you do these things, you went through it. That was a little piece of methodology. Eat these things for this amount of time, for this many days, do this, and your life changes. It's simple, not always easy.
Right. So if you want to go to the next stage then, so where can people find out about you? What are you doing? What are you up to at the moment?
Right now, I just started a great Instagram campaign, if you will. So if you go, I am Joseph McClendon on Instagram, or you can go to visit me on my site, which is makeyourfate.com. And, all of my events, I don't know if this is timestamp, but they're on there. I just have 3 very simple events on there, and a lot of them are sold out. So pay attention to it. And if you want me to keep you posted of what's coming up, you can even on Instagram I'll start to put stuff on there. But you can leave your information there, and we'll send you stuff to let you know what's coming up.
Right. Okay. Good. And final question then, Joseph. So Escape Your Limits is about escaping what you or other people have said is impossible. Mm-hmm. What would be a recent example of you escaping your own personal limits?
I was telling this to your wife.
Don't tell me you could build the greenhouse.
No, don't. Yeah. That was, by the way, that was a limit of mine. I was telling you earlier, I have an obsession, if you will, and that is that I call it the equivalent to drunk texting. Is I don't drink, but I sit in my hotel rooms when I'm traveling, and I order stuff on Amazon. I have a problem, okay? So anyway, but so to answer your question, there's limits that I didn't, and I'm human, contrary to popular belief, that I didn't even know I had. And I was telling this to your wife earlier. It's been a year and a half ago, some thieves broke into my house. And they took the most valuable things in my life. Family photos, some of these beautiful bases, possessions that I've had that are gone. And when it happened, 2 things happened to me. I was in Florida and I got the word. And when it happened, I was devastated. I was completely devastated, but only for about 20 seconds. Because the work that I've done with myself and what I teach people, I defaulted. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't glad that I lost my stuff, but I defaulted to something is going to come of this that is good and everything's going to be okay. And because I was able to default to that in that amount of time without having to do something, it just came up in me, because that's the way my programming is now. I was able to tell them something that I was able to get some of the stuff back. They caught one of the guys that did it. But here's my answer to your question. My limit was that all of this stuff, possessions, were me. And that what I have, and this is, I'm bearing my soul, I didn't realize it, that I was so attached to what I have, and that it meant, my house, all these things, that meant who I was, because I've done a lot to get that stuff, and that was a limit with me, and I didn't even realize it. That when that happened, because of what I told you about the default, I came to the realization I'm not attached to stuff now. I'm not attached to material stuff. My biggest outcome these days, my drive and my pull is to help as many people as I possibly can go further, faster, in whatever they do, for this reason. Unless you've been living under a rock, you know that the world is having challenges. From politically to just, our morals, all those things that are going on. And it's not going to be our government, whatever country you live in, that changes things. It's going to be us as individuals. And so if I can impart something to people, as many people as I possibly can, to change how they feel about themselves, how we feel about ourselves is how we'll treat other people as well. And so but as I do that, then I can help them remove their limits, we'll be kinder to each other, and we'll help other people. And so you don't have to do what I do, getting on stage and talking to, all these people. And now, literally, I counted it up over the last year, every month I've been in front of at least 15,000 people, at least. And sometimes it's 10, 15,000 at a time, at once. But you don't have to do what I do. But even if you just go and make the money that you want and get over, because everybody can make, more money, get the body that you want, whatever you want, even if you do those things. And you don't get up and do what I do. Your example is going to inspire somebody else. You never know who. Your example that you did it, well, I can do that as well. And kudos to you for what you're doing right here. And I thank you so much for this opportunity to do this. But I call them vidcasts, okay, that you're doing is inspiring so many people. Ken was telling me earlier, Mike, he did a podcast, like a podcast every day that you did earlier.
JLD. Oh, okay. Yeah, John Lee Dumas.
Yeah. Just him telling me that story inspired me, So you never know. Somebody else's success, your success is going to inspire somebody else. And the more inspired people that we have, the better this place is going to be. The more, with the risk of sounding too California, we're going to have more loving people that are going to love each other, and the world is going to change that way.
Yeah, that's very inspiring. And I didn't think about it like that, but you're right. If you can, I guess very simply, if you can feel good about yourself, you're going to make someone else feel good, even if it's just one person.
And just your example of doing that.
Yeah.
Maybe not last thing, you might have another question, but when I moved to Los Angeles, when I was pursuing my music career, I moved to Los Angeles, and I lived in a small town called Lancaster. And it was a small town. Everybody knew each other. And when you'd walk by somebody, you'd go, "Hi, how you doing?" Polite, and you'd acknowledge that somebody was there. When I moved to Los Angeles, nobody would say hello. And I noticed that and I thought to myself, these people are jerks. That's why, Hollywood's plastic and all this stuff, they're jerks. And then I asked the question, what if it's not them? I thought, well, of course it's them. I'm Joseph. And then I thought, okay, well, wait a minute. What if I changed my approach? Knowing what I know about our energy, what I created was something I call my 50-foot rule. And I encourage everybody to do this. Try it out. It's one of those things that, again, you determine what is life-changing and what isn't, but this is one of them that changes gradually, and then you'll notice the difference as time goes on. And my 50-foot rule is anybody that comes within 50 feet of me, I'm going to look at them, and I'm going to say to myself, projecting it to them, I love you. Because those words make me feel a certain way, and as I talked to you before, my energy grows, their energy grows, they feel it, and we move towards each other. And so I started doing that. And it's just a ritual with me now. Now it's condition. It's just what I do. Anybody that I come to, I don't care if I know you, I don't know you, my projection to you is I love you, okay? And so what happens is, as I told you before, the mechanics of it is that my energy grows, their energy grows, they feel it, and we move towards each other. People started to change. And people started to acknowledge me, and people started to speak up before I even spoke. And so I'm, at the risk of sounding arrogant, I'm that way. Wherever I go, I can light up a room. And we all can do that. And so I encourage everybody, light up the world with your energy. Just put your, instead of watching, spending so much time on your cell phone or social network, social media and that kind of thing, spend some time just looking around and just observing and appreciating and loving yourself, loving other people, and loving the world. Yeah. Everything will change.
Some great lessons, and I'll challenge anyone, if they've got to this stage in the podcast, just to go and try one or two of those things for 10 days like I did and see what happens. So, Joseph, it's really been a pleasure. I appreciate you making the time and inviting me into your house.
Oh, thank you.
Best wishes for everything else. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, my friend. Thank you. And remember this, one last thing. Life is exactly what you dare to make it, and fortune favors the bold. So the trick to life is to boldly step up and dare to make your life magnificent. And I'll see you at the top.
Thank you. Thanks
My
again.
pleasure.
That was
Thank
wonderful. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, then please go over to iTunes and subscribe to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Leave a review, leave a comment. It really would help us a lot to continue to keep these going.